I, a 36-year-old male, am married to Joanna, a 34-year-old female, for about 6 years. I work for a construction company in project management, which means I'm away from work pretty often, usually about a month at a time, twice a year. Joanna used to tell me she understood travel was part of my job, and for years, I thought we were a strong, trusting couple who could have a good life together. Turns out, I was way off. This whole nightmare started during my last work trip and came crashing down thanks to a video call and the dang reflection in her glasses. Yep, glasses. Let me tell you how it went down. It was my second week away on this trip, and Joanna and I were doing our usual video calls every night to stay connected. She'd usually fill me in on the small stuff, work drama, neighborhood gossip, whatever was going on at home. I always loved these calls. They kept us close even when I was far away. One night, while we were on our call, I noticed something strange in the background. Out of nowhere, a guy whom I only know by face walks into our house. He just strolls in through the front door without even knocking. No hesitation, no announcement, nothing. The guy saw she was on a video call and backed off, fled as if he was caught in an act. Joanna jumped out from the couch upon hearing the door getting shut and swiftly disconnected the call. I immediately called her back and asked what just happened. She seemed flustered but tried to maintain her composure, replying, "Oh, that's Rick. You know him, right?" I replied, "Yes, I know him. He's our neighbor. What the hell was he doing here, and at this hour?" It was almost 10. She shrugged it off, saying he probably just needed to borrow something. She brushed it off like it was no big deal, just some guy from next door who was friendly enough to walk right in. I asked her how he got so comfortable that he could just barge into our house without knocking, as if it were his own. She snapped at me, saying I was making a big deal out of it. He was just a neighbor who happened to be her gym partner, and that's how they became friends. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a casual neighbor visit. It threw me, but I let it slide for the moment. I didn't want to overthink while I was miles away. 2 days later, she felt sick and took off from work to relax. I had a free afternoon, so I called her to kill my time. We were on a call when the doorbell rang. She hurriedly went to answer it. I heard some whispering in the background. When she came back, she looked a little bit off. Her hair was also open and messed up, as if someone had stroked it before. That was unusual, as she was usually in a neat ponytail. I remember it vividly because I like the way she ties her hair. I know a lot of guys like women with open hair, but not me. So whenever she would tie it in this particular way, I felt head over heels. I asked her what was up. At first, she said nothing and picked up the topic where we left off. I stopped her and asked who was there at the door. Her response was, "Oh, yeah, door." There was this group raising money for charity, and she again continued to talk about some random stuff. I circled back to the question again. "Which charity group did you give them money?" She named a charity and said she gave $100. She was fumbling and rolling her open locks, which was very unusual of her. Her discomfort was all across her body language, but she tried hard to put on a normal face and talk. But then she made a mistake. She was wearing her glasses, these new ones she'd just gotten with big lenses. As she was talking to me, she looked up, straight across the laptop, and I noticed something in the reflection. I squinted, trying to make it out, and there he was, Rick, the same guy. This time, he was standing right in front of her, grinning like a smug jerk, teasing her, pouting, and giving flying kisses to distract her. I quickly switched off my video camera, saying there was a poor connection so she wouldn't see the shock on my face. Then I swiftly pulled out my phone and started recording it. I could barely keep my hands steady. Somehow managed to keep my voice calm. "You won't believe what happened next," I said. "That son of a witch started undressing himself." I froze. My stomach was in knots. My whole body went cold. My face remained neutral. She was quiet too. Her focus was entirely on the jerk's body. I mustered the courage and asked her if everything was okay. She looked at the laptop screen and said, with a broad smile, "Oh, yeah, just a bit of a headache. I think I need to lie down soon." She looked at me right in the eyes, through that screen, and lied straight to my face, with her naked piece of junk in my bedroom. She had no idea I'd seen him in the reflection of her glasses. It felt like a punch to the gut. There was my wife, lying to me with the same sweet, innocent face she'd always had, while her lover stood naked in front of her, acting like he owned that place. I couldn't bear it any longer. I disconnected the call. I wished I could rush home and shoot that in the head. In the moment of desperation, I hailed a cab to the airport. I tried booking the first flight home, only to realize that by the time I reached home, the guy would be done doing my wife. My wish of catching him in the act was unreasonable. Then something in me snapped, and I wished to go nuclear on my revenge. I stopped the cab midway and walked back to the hotel, contemplating my next move. That whore was cheating on me, in my own house. The house I bought before we even met was being treated like her personal property. I built this life for us, and she was treating it as if she could do whatever she wanted behind my back. I knew I could have confronted her right then, but after that blatant lie and the way she acted so casual, I wanted her to feel the kind of shock and betrayal I was feeling. I wanted her to realize that everything she took for granted could disappear just like that. I made my plan, and I'm executing it bit by bit. Sorry, I'm too emotionally drained to write further. I'll save that for the next post. If at all I'm in a mood to write it. Even this one took me 2 days to write. I thought maybe venting would help. Thanks for reading it if anyone came this far. The nerve of Rick, just walking into your home like he owned the place, and Joanna trying to brush it off, must have hit like a slap in the face for her to play it off as just a neighborly visit. It really makes it seem like she thought she could pull the wool over your eyes, especially with you away for work. Update 1. Thanks to this lovely community, I'm here again to share the remaining bits. So, after that video call crap, I was stoned for the next 2 days, not proud of it. I avoided all calls and texts from her, telling her I was busy. 2 days later, my manager called me at my number, asking if I was fine because I missed some very important meetings and briefs. I broke down and told him everything. We've been working together for years and have built that sort of rapport. He asked me if I wanted a break or maybe go back home and sort out the stuff. I immediately requested a transfer without thinking twice because I didn't want to go back to that city. He asked me to sleep on the thought, and I did revisit my decision, but that only led to plotting my nuclear revenge. Like I said, I work for a construction company, and one of its wings deals with property sales. I originally bought the house through them. They have some employee discounts, which I cashed in very early in my career. I had a house even before I started dating Joanna. I figured I might be able to sell it without her even knowing about it. So, the next day, I called up my manager and told him I wanted to sell this property. He connected me with the right team, and since my house details were already in the system, it was easy enough to start the process. Meanwhile, I requested my manager to facilitate my transfer. It was a tough decision, but I knew I wanted this. I didn't want to just leave the house behind. I wanted to leave everything behind. Then, I also hired a lawyer. It took me a week to get a 1-hour appointment, and that's when I realized the demand for divorce lawyers in our country. They get business from these cheating spouses who can't control their lust. Anyway, I discussed my case and shared the evidence. Sadly, you cannot do much except for a divorce. I might also have to give alimony because we live in a no-fault state. Quite pathetic, right? I know, but I'm ready for everything to get rid of that cheating witch. During the remaining 2 weeks of my stay, I barely spoke to her. She occasionally video chatted me, and I would respond, but I remained silent for most of the time. She would ask me if everything was fine, and I would put my brightest smile and say, yes, I'm just too busy with work. The transfer and the house sale couldn't happen in 2 weeks, and I also had to take my stuff out of the house. So, I had to head home at the end of my 1-month stay. I went back home as scheduled and tried to play cool, which was very, very hard for me. I told her I would have to leave for another trip next week. She faked a sad face, but I knew deep down she would be dancing at the thought of having her jerk of a partner in the house. I booked a hotel near my work until I was transferred to the new city. I spent the week at home, only to whisk away my important stuff without her knowing about it. The first night I spent in the house, she wanted to initiate intimacy, but I shrugged it off, saying I was tired from the travel. She got upset and said I was behaving very rudely. Not sure if she was acting it or if she really was, but I couldn't care less. I dozed off, saying I was too tired to deal with it right now. Then, on the next night, she waited for me to make the move. You know this thing about women. Once you decline their sex move, they won't do it again for the next few days. I played the part of the clueless husband. I even cooked dinner and acted like everything was perfect, just to see her face while I planned the ultimate blindside. But inside, every time I looked at her, all I could think of was her making out with him, lying to my face, acting like I was some kind of fool. Her presence disgusted me. When she went to work, I packed all my important stuff and slowly shifted them to storage. During my stay in the house, I searched for more evidence but could find none. I checked with my lawyer if the video I had gathered through the reflection of her glass counted, and if that was enough. He said it was, "Can't reveal all the details, sorry." The night before I was supposed to leave, she came to me with teary eyes and said she wanted to talk about something. It seemed she wanted to confess something. We all know what it was, and my heart sank. I felt caught off guard. I immediately diffused the situation by saying, "I know I've been distant since I returned, but I promise things will get better." Once after this, she whispered it was about something else. I said, "Whatever it is, I assure you it will be solved soon. But right now, my mind is too occupied with work-related stuff." I didn't want her to confess. I wanted to rip her when she was off guard. She tried to seduce me, and I gave in, knowing that this would be the last time I was ever close to her. It made my stomach churn, but occasionally her cheating scene flashed, and I gave her the pain she deserved, really hard pain. I continued until she could no longer take it. I've always been gentle and soft otherwise. It made me feel guilty later. I shouldn't have done that. I do feel sick and pathetic later, but I can't help it now. I deliberately left when she was at work, leaving a note on the kitchen counter that I had to leave before schedule. She called me, but I declined to answer or forwarded it to voicemail. All her texts got one reply from me: I was busy. I checked into the hotel where I stayed until my transfer. The house sale was pretty smooth. I gave up my ownership rights and immediately got the check once the paperwork was done. My company sent her an eviction notice, and she absolutely lost it. She thought I was misunderstanding, and she blew up my phone with calls and texts. One of her texts read, "Why ain't you replying? Someone took away our house and sent me an eviction notice. Where the hell are you?" I wanted to send her the divorce paper and eviction notice together, but that plan got delayed because the divorce paper took longer to arrive. I demand they say, but this was also fun for her. She ran to the government office to verify the notice and got to know that the previous owner, I had sold the house initially. She thought it was some sort of misunderstanding and hired a lawyer to fight for it. Just then, she got another shocker: the divorce paper. She quickly added up the puzzle pieces and got the hang of the situation. Her next message was, "You coward. Didn't have the balls to break up on my face, did you?" She accused me of cheating during my work trip and leaving her for another woman. It was then I shared the video that I had recorded, and her attitude changed completely. She started to apologize and begged, saying it was a misunderstanding, he was just a friend, and blah blah. I blocked her after that. Then, I went to the bank and emptied our joint account, transferring everything into my account. I'd worked hard for that money, and there was no way I was leaving it behind for her. Blocking her number didn't stop her. She moved on to emails, each one more desperate than the last, asking for a chance to explain herself, as if there was any explanation that could justify what she'd done. Her reason for calling it a mistake or a moment of weakness was least helpful on her. When she realized I wasn't responding, the emails turned angry. She called me cruel and heartless and said I'd overreacted by selling the house and taking the money, that I was the one ruining her life, she said. Her life. She had no idea the pain she'd caused, the betrayal she'd inflicted. "How could you just take away everything we built together?" she asked. Look at her audacity. I took away everything when she was the one screwing around in my absence. I ignored it all. She deserved every bit of this. I haven't spoken to her since I left home. I know I'll have to face her soon, as the court hearing is approaching. I'm mentally preparing myself for that. By the way, I got the transfer a week ago, and I'm just settling in a new city, looking forward to building my life from scratch. I hope I'm not too old for that. A moment of weakness, right? If I had a nickel for every time someone said, "He's just a friend." Update 2. Sorry, I took this long to update. I couldn't help it. It took this long to get the divorce final. A lot has happened since my last post. The first was her lawyer and mine fixed a meeting between us, which was an absolute disaster. It was filled with cries and emotional manipulation. She had several questions for me, while I just had one, why? The same classic reply, it meant nothing, it was just for fun. That meeting cleared one thing. She was more bothered about the house getting snatched off her head than the divorce, and I couldn't be happier about my decision. Obviously, she pleaded for reconciliation and suggested going for couples therapy and stuff like that, but it was all a bluff. The meeting took place at her lawyer's office. After she walked out of the cabin, I stood at the window to see her walking out of the building. She stood outside. I thought maybe she was waiting for a taxi, but guess who came to pick her up? Her affair partner. That sight sent a shiver down my spine. She had the audacity to call her affair partner to pick her up after leaving a session where she was pleading with me for another chance. That's not all. After she vacated the house, I went there to collect my leftover stuff. And that son of a witch had the balls to walk up to me and say, "Dude, you're overreacting. Your wife loves you a lot. You're a fool to let her go." I stared at him with raging eyes and continued to say, "I know she messed up, but look at her. She's so pretty she can't get away with strike one. And look at you. You can't get lucky twice to bag such a beauty." Before he finished his sentence, I punched him right on the nose. It started bleeding. He didn't expect the blow. I screamed, "Run if you want your bones to be inside your body." It sounds funny now, but it wasn't when I said it. I was in anger. He walked away cursing. I don't know what he expected when he talked to me and said crap about me while still effing my wife. Joanna was couch surfing with her friend, but later I got to know she had moved in with her affair partner. Her parents tried to intervene and talked me out of the divorce, but when they saw their daughter was still fooling around with her affair partner, they cut her off. Since then, I haven't seen them around during the hearing. Initially, some of her friends also reached out about her case, asking me to give her a chance, but eventually, they backed off. She didn't shy away from hanging out with her affair partner. She crossed all levels of shamelessness. That scumbag accompanied her during the court hearings, not inside the premises, but he would be around for pickup, drop-off, and sometimes hanging in the cafe during the hearing break. Initially, I used to be bothered a lot, but then it only made me and my case stronger. What I got to know from my lawyer was that her legal team advised her not to hang out with him openly, but she didn't pay any heed. Sadly, she had to suffer in her alimony details. The funny part is when she was pleading against the divorce. When the magistrate questioned her about living and hanging out with the affair partner, she said she was doing it on purpose just to make me feel jealous and get back at me. In her twisted logic, she imagined I would run back to her when I saw her in his arms. The reality was, I felt disgusted and wanted her to disappear from my sight. The proceedings were long and exhausting, but finally, I got rid of a cheater. Yes, I wasted 9 years of my life, married for 6 and dated for 3, but I also saved the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm trying to be positive. What else can I do? It sucks. It's been a few months since then, and honestly, I still feel like I'm waking up from a bad dream. I moved to a new city and started fresh in a new place, but the past still haunts me. At first, I felt lost, like I'd been stripped of everything I knew, but with each day, I feel a little stronger. I know I did the right thing, but looking back, I'm glad I didn't confront Joanna outright. Watching her life fall apart without warning was the only closure I needed. She thought she could have it all, that she could live this double life, lying to my face and expecting me to stay clueless. I gave her the surprise of her life, just like she gave me. I wanted her to feel the same gut punch, the same shock and betrayal. Sometimes, life doesn't give you a fair warning before things come crashing down, but I took control and walked away with my dignity. I'm never looking back. The fact that she thought she could waltz back into your life with a, "Oops, my bad, let's just forget this," while her sidekick was right there, says everything about her complete lack of self-awareness. You weren't overreacting, OP. I can't believe he had the guts to tell you that. Not sure any of her actions prove that she actually truly loved you. Here's to you, your fresh start, and never looking back.